Hello, everyone. Okay, everyone, welcome to the live. I am Natasha Brown, and we're just waiting for Peter Christopher to join us, as well as you guys to join the live. Okay, so welcome again to tonight's discussion with Peter Christopher. He's a senior reporter at the Business Guardian, and of course, he has worked with the NC3. I'm seeing some.
All right.
All right. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, and how are you?
I am okay. I'm okay. I hope nobody seen a lot of numbers there.
Oh, we know you're a player.
Well, they had to
Yeah?
play 14 million,
Yeah. No ticket, no chance.
That's something to start a business with.
Correct. And that's the topic we are discussing tonight. So the art of business telling and business story writing. So welcome again. For those who don't know, I'm Natasha Brown with Brownie Communications. And our guest is Peter Christopher. I believe he's a senior reporter, yes? With
Senior
the Guardian
Multimedia
Media Group.
Guardian Media Limited.
All right, great. So as we're breaking the ice with introductions, I'll ask Peter to give a little background into his media journey. Where did he start from? Was it a passion that led him here, or was it something else? So let the audience know exactly how you fell into media to begin with.
Well, my media journey actually started all the way back in secondary school. Um, it was my love of sports, really. Not being the greatest footballer, but wanting to be a part of something. I started writing the match reports for the school newspaper, The Tower, and from there,
What school?
this is QRC. QRC is
Okay.
school
Go on.
newspaper, The Tower, and from there, the other members in my English lit class felt that I should become the co-editor of The Tower for sixth form, and I started looking into getting into journalism a bit more seriously there. Even running afoul of some teachers to go to UWE to attend a journalism conference. I applied for an internship with the Express around that time. I
Mhm.
was called for an interview, but unfortunately it clashed with my exam, so I had to hold off on that. And from there, I did a small stint with Total Football, which was an old show on TV6 back in the day as one of their reporters there. And then I eventually returned to the Express through an internship, which really launched my career as we know it now.
Excellent. And how long did you stay at the Express?
I was at the Express from 2007 to 2009, just under 3 years.
Okay. And then your next step was the Guardian, or you went to Newsday or Sunshine, or
My next step was actually school. I went to UWE to finish. Well, I was in UWE. I finished my
Mhm.
degree. I took time away from the media. I was out of the media for about 2 years until I got a job with what is now known as TTT. It was CNMG then.
Mhm.
And I came on board and I started doing broadcast journalism when previously I was doing
Print.
I was doing print.
Mm. Okay.
And I stayed at CNMG until 2018, and then I moved across to Guardian Media.
Now, just for my own curiosity, is there okay, say one day you wake up and like, okay, I fed up for Express. Is it very simple to, because it seems like the transition from one to the other is very easy. Is that the case?
It could be easy for some people if you've developed a reputation and valuable, you're seen as a valuable asset to media houses. They come calling for you and they come asking you, can you come across and you do a job here? Um, my transition from Express to CNNG was not easy. I was actually trying to get back into print journalism, and
Mm.
for a while after I got my degree, I thought the media was done with me
Oh,
until someone noticed on my resume at another internship I did that I had experience in journalism, and it's like, well, CNMG needs journalists, and they said, well, we know you've not done much TV, but
mm.
you have journalism experience, so why not give it a shot? And that launched relaunched my media career.
Okay, excellent. So as we get to know you a bit more, we're going to play a game, which is Would You Rather? So I'm going to give you two options, and you just tell me which one you prefer, right? Well, we're going into the finals right now. Are you a Golden State or what is it? Boston Celtics? Who's your team?
Neither of them are my team. I'm a New York Knicks fan, so
Oh,
I don't really care for the finals this year. Or for many years actually, the Knicks haven't been saying anything for almost 20 years. So
you
salt
haven't
for
been
me.
watching.
No,
Okay,
I'll watch. I'll watch. Of the two, I'll probably pick Golden State.
okay. All right. So the other choice is, do you prefer in office or work from home?
But work from home is so comfortable. I mean, there are benefits for working in the office, but overall, with all the connectivity we have now, I think work from home is the better option for more or less everything.
And it works in the journalism field because you.
It it can work. What what I would say though is that to do journalism properly, you do need to go out there and experience things firsthand and get a feel for what is going on. And you can't do that from home and you can't do that from your office. So you have to actually go out and physically be there to get a proper idea. Like, for instance, let's take the Royal Caribbean
Yeah.
incident yesterday. Um, yes, we saw the videos and you can report from the videos, but going out there, if I was writing a print story, if I was there, I could get the kind of the atmosphere, the kind of vibe people were having, what they were doing. You cannot paint all of that necessarily just through a 30-minute clip or a minute package or anything like that. You really need to go and experience it.
Excellent. Okay, good. So the next two options, Zoom or Google Meet. What is your online platform choice?
Google Meet.
Any reason why?
I think it's just a little smoother in terms of how it handles the interactions.
Okay. What about, well, print media or broadcast media? Would you rather? You can
Print
abstain
media.
if you want.
Print media, even though I think it's easier to write for TV.
Okay, we'll get into that. Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Okay. Email, somebody emailing you a pitch like, hey, Peter, there's a great story, or a random person calling on the phone. Cold call or email?
Email.
Email. Your desktop or a laptop/tablet?
Laptop.
Laptop. Hold on a second. Maybe interrupt us. Yeah, you do. Android or Apple?
Well, I've never owned an Apple phone, so I'll have to stick with Android. I have to stick with what I know.
Okay. And bus up shot or roti?
Well, bus up shot is a type of roti, so but
Well,
bus up shot over Dalpuri, yes.
over the wrap. Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And that's why you're in the media. Okay, so now that we know a bit about you, and where you started from, let's dive really into your practice of journalism. Right now, you do sit at the business desk, correct? At
Yes, I
the
do.
Trinidad Guardian. Okay. Now tell me what that transition was. Well, I would have had these conversations before where I've asked journalists, Is it that you're responsible for a wide range of beats, or is there a particular beat that journalists now have to face? So what is your experience in terms of beat reporting, and how did you get into business?
All right. It was a very long road to business. As I mentioned earlier, I was an intern at the Express, and one of my first breakthrough stories was actually a business story. But I was initially placed as a general news reporter,
Okay.
and that slowly transitioned into crime reporting. And I became known as a crime reporter for a very long time, even though I was still labeled as a general news reporter, like all the way through from Express straight through my first 4 years in CNMG. I was mainly known as a crime reporter. But because I was still a general reporter, I'd still be asked to do other things along the way, including business stories.
Mhm.
Um, my transition to the business desk uh, would have taken place is a long courtship actually. Curtis Williams was speaking to me about a year into my arrival at Guardian Media, and he said he was very interested about bringing me on to the business desk, which
Mm.
was a bit confusing to me because I always felt that I wasn't the strongest in terms of business.
Mm.
I never I never did a business subject in school. I didn't do POV or anything like that. But I would occasionally chip in with the odd story here and there. But he felt I had potential, and
Mhm.
last year I accepted his offer to come onto the business desk. And honestly, it's been very eye-opening. I think apart from my early days at both Express and CNMG, I don't think I've gotten as wide a reception for the stories that I've done since I've come on the business desk. So
Mm.
kudos for recognizing that I could contribute to the desk.
Excellent. Okay, and you said you mentioned recognition. You're being more widely known um since you took on the portfolio of business reporting. That's what you said, right? Um,
Yeah, I'm getting more responses to the stories
more.
I'm doing now than I would say what I was doing with my other stories, I would say.
Okay, could you elaborate on that point?
No, just the feedback. Just last week I was in office and people were calling me about stories I did 3, 4 months ago and asking me questions about what this means and everything, which means that I am actually reaching a wider base of people. I think that that may be due to a couple of things. Crime reporting is very depressing, and we've been mired in a very dire state of crime for 2 decades now. So perhaps you know it doesn't have the impact that it used to,
Yeah.
but it's still very important that we keep an eye on what is going on and that in terms of crime in country. But and I also think the other part of it is that the state of business and the economy in Trinidad is very crucial. We've gone through a period where we've gone through two major disruptors in the last 6 years. We've had a recession and then we've had the pandemic, which has had adverse impacts on, just overall standard of living of people in Trinidad and Tobago. So the fact that I'm been able to, shed some light on what is going on for a wider set of people to understand and, get a grasp of, how this impacts them has been really telling.
Mm, excellent. And you mentioned that you never did a business subject. And one of my perceptions was that, you know, you have to have jargon and you have to know technical things and you have to know acronyms. And is business reporting heavily jargonized for want of a better word? I know this word is totally, don't use this word anyone. But do you find yourself having to Google stuff and go to dictionaries and um, is that something that you face?
Yes, yes. Just yesterday, I was doing up a report from the energy conference, and I had to reach out to my sister, who is in the oil and gas sector, to explain to me what a FPSO is, because this guy who was speaking was just referring to FPSOs in Suriname and Guyana, and she had to break that down to me. And but that's part of the job in any beat, because there's always, like on the crime desk, there's legalese, and in terms of education, you have to talk about the different meanings and the different terms and everything like that. So it's just about understanding, the different variables on each desk. Yes, business, because it's not something that I came from a business background. It has been a bit more of a challenge. As I said, I was skeptical about coming across to the business desk, but it has been rewarding. I've learned a lot of things, and I think I'm a better person for it. And I'm just having a wider understanding of what people are going through because I've been on the desk for over a year now.
No, my son. All right. All right. So my next question. Sorry about that, folks. So in journalism school, they would have taught us about three sources and the need for three sources when writing a story. Now, sometimes
Right.
when there's a business story, there's only focus on that person. In a sense, is that similar to feature writing, where there's only one person interviewed or only one person's feedback given?
Um, there's still elements of, yes, it could be like feature writing, but there's still elements of, because um, when you're featuring a business, um, to make sure it doesn't just go into the realm of PR or advertising, you do need to get feedback, and you do need to find out if customers are reacting, or if who it impacts. And that's something that we have to be very careful with in terms of reporting on these brands and these businesses.
Yeah.
Yes, they're opening, and what does it mean? What does it mean for the community? What does it mean in terms of, the investors and everything? So there
That's a
is
good point.
there's still a level of, searching for the double confirmation, or the second confirmation, as you would say, is not as clear cut, I would say, as, other tenets of journalism, but it is there.
Mhm. Okay, well said. And just want to give a Nate Gray. Is in Business Guardian run things. So
I'm
I
not
just
sure
want to
his
acknowledge
boss is,
that comment.
but I appreciate it.
Yes, yes. So you mentioned a business story being more than a PR tool, and you would need to get other person's opinions, the customers, the community, etc. And that raises the point: how do you go about finding stories? Is it looking through the paper to see who's advertising heavily, who's opening a new store? What tools are used to find these stories? Because I mean, every week there has to be a Peter Christopher story. So where do these stories come from?
All of the above. Some days it comes from walking through reading through the newspaper, just perhaps just looking at an ad, going through my email. Sometimes it could just me on the commute to work and seeing something, or hearing somebody in a taxi talking about, well, this is happening, and it becomes something that I check out and I explore. Like, in for instance, I am a gamer, so in a FIFA group I was in, someone posted something about the price of a PS5, and from there it would just seem like, yeah, somebody's trying to sell a PS5, and then from there I was like, wait, there's a shortage for PS5s, and it's very hard to get a PS5 internationally. What is the situation in Trinidad? And that
Yeah.
became Business Guardian piece. So it can come from everything. There's Business impacts everyone, because we all have to conduct business transactions, big or small, every day, almost every day. Pretty much, just owning a home is a business transaction, going to the grocery is business transactions, getting your child to school is a business transaction for some people, most people probably. So there's business in everything, and I think what some people, and I would be guilty of that, previously, as when I was a younger journalist, is thinking that only the big business, only the masses and the public banks are the big business stories. But no,
Mm,
the corner parlor is part of the business economy of Trinidad and Tobago, and they do have a story to tell.
yes, correct. Okay. And how useful are tools like Twitter? I know journalists do find themselves very active on Twitter, and tell me, why do you engage on Twitter? Is it that you're retweeting? Um, are you replying to persons? What is your engagement like on Twitter? Or is it just post and run as a journalist?
I love Twitter. I think Twitter is an amazing tool if handled well. If you create your timeline well and you know how to use Twitter, you can get a lot of information very quickly. Um, it is perhaps the most immediate of the social media that we have currently.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
it's almost like radio. You know, something can happen on radio and everybody can hear. Everybody who's listening to a radio will hear it.
Mhm.
Everybody who is on Twitter could see something happening almost in real time on social media. That's how I think it's an amazing tool. I was introduced to Twitter actually back at the Express. It was just something that, let me try it out. And from there, I realized, hey, if I search for certain things on Twitter,
Yeah.
everybody who is talking about this, right?
Comes up.
Before we
Mhm.
really understood what a hashtag was, everybody who is talking about this, you can find out why they are talking about it in a matter of seconds, and that's an amazing thing. That was a game changer for me in media.
Right. Excellent. And do you receive pictures or persons in your inbox like, hey, Peter, check out this story? Is that something happens to you?
Yes, every week
Um,
there's always someone sending a message. A good few of my stories came out of those little messages, and this might be something to check out. So yes, I get a lot of pictures, and a good few of them become stories that show up in the newspaper or on
okay.
CNC3.
So persons tune in, hit up Peter Christopher, his inbox. As a matter of fact, any journalists out there that you follow, they've all said Twitter is a tool to reach out to them and they should use it. So you said you've been in the business desk for a little over a year.
Uh, about a year and a half now.
So interestingly enough, I went through your story on the Sunday Guardian with the NEDCO headline saying there's not enough innovation. And a lot of the
Yes.
entrepreneurs are looking at the same thing, opening a store, opening um, a clothing store, a little barber shop, etc. And they're looking for really innovative businesses. Um, so what really stands out to you in terms of a new business that you want to cover? What would make you jump at it? Or get you, what business story would really get you excited? Or what business idea?
It would have to be a really niche business, something that I really would not have thought about. I think Joel Julian is actually really good at finding stuff like that. Um, I know recently there was a break room that was open in San Fernando, and
Mm,
I thought that was a really novel idea where you could just go and let your frustration out and break things.
yeah.
And I think stuff like that we're not accustomed seeing in Trinidad and Tobago is what we really need to be focused on, I think. And unfortunately, the pandemic really exposed us in
Mm,
terms of, how limited we are in terms of what we have. A lot of people ran down what they knew to be successful. And when
yeah.
that door was closed, we did see a little bit of innovation. We saw some people figuring out new ways to get commerce and to maintain a livelihood. But overall, this basic model is still there. Open a clothing store, open a bar, you know,
Food store.
food store, buy a maxi, put a car on the road,
Mm,
and we have not really seen anything that is a game changer. I want to stick with media in a way. I think it's really interesting that Trinidad, being a country that is so obsessed with international sport, was not the place that really launched like Sportsmax. We have Flow Sports down here, but Flow Sports is still built out of a conglomerate that is international and not a local channel that became dedicated to, you know, creating or curating content for sport out of the Caribbean.
Mm, interesting. But when you do speak to businesses, I mean, you mentioned like the parlor store and anything, do they mention any hindrances to innovation? Like we as a people, what is our own, you know, stumbling block? Where do we not, yeah, where do we stumble when it comes to innovation, in your opinion, working business?
Well, that's a very, very good question. Um, Trinidadians, I asked the question in the newsroom a couple of months ago if we are slow to adopt trends or if we are trendsetters. And the consensus in the newsroom is that we've begun to become trendsetters on social media at least. But in terms of straying away from what we know, I don't really think we do. Um, we take a while, we wait for things to get popular, and then we tend to go for it. And I don't think we take enough risks to develop those kind of businesses that are, you know, trailblazers. So, that's why I said I
It's
was
more of a
really
laid back.
interested. Yeah, we kind of wait and see on a lot of things. So I think that is one of the challenges. But of course, the overall challenges from that most businesses have in terms of getting started, getting the capital and getting the investment, smaller businesses in particular. And of course, there's I don't want to directly steal from the we pay guy, but there is a lot of bureaucratic issues and a lot of, you know, circles and loops that we have to go through to get businesses off the ground in Trinidad. And we haven't done too great in terms of improving our ease of doing business, even though we have a lot of very good tools down here that would allow for businesses to invest. In fact, we're seeing more businesses pull out of Trinidad and opt to use us as, you know, just a distribution center, which is unfortunate. But it's just something we need to work on in terms of, you know, allowing for businesses to develop in a quicker time frame.
Excellent. Now, as a business reporter, are there any reports that you have to pay attention to? Because you mentioned like the manufacturing sector. Is it that these companies have reports? I don't know if KTMA probably has an annual report. So as a business reporter, what do you have to be, what's the word? What do you have to be aware of, or which reports do you need to get your hand on as it comes out? Or are these tools helpful or from these different companies?
Financial audited reports, quarterly, biannually, annual reports, they have a lot of gems in them. It's not just dollars and cents and profits. Sometimes they give you hints about where people are investing, what they're looking, where they bought property, where. So I think I learned from one of those reports that local cinema is planning to, you know, open up a spot in Gulf City Mall. I didn't know that before I opened that report, and from there it becomes a story I can break. This chain is making plans to develop this area. So following the money, it's something that the former Attorney General used to say a lot. If you follow the money, you can find a lot of things. So when you look through the report and you see what is allocated, you can get an idea of what some of the investors are thinking and what some of the owners are, and what direction they're hoping to go into.
Wow, well said. So things like the budget as well, the budget report, every
Yeah.
wow.
Some stories going through the budget statement is very interesting. You can see, you know, if you if Imbit didn't say it, you could probably find it in, a line item somewhere. Why this state entity was allocated an extra 20 million, and there's usually an explainer why, and then we could probably pull the thread a bit more and get some more information.
Mm. But do you have to listen to like Parliament or the Joint Select committees live? Is that part of it as well? Depends. It would depend.
Ideally, it should be the political desk, but there are things that overlap. There have been stories that come out of Parliament that directly relate to business. So it's always good to pay attention. Um, even while I was on the crime desk, in fact, that's how I began my transition away from crime. Is that I was paying attention to post cabinet and Parliament and picking up things there that allowed me to be placed on the political desk for a while. And some of the contacts I developed in politics have actually helped in my transition to the business desk because, they would be in contact with some of the major players and they would give me some insights as to some of the things that have been happening.
Okay. Now we saw recently that there was a launch for a new product from Breeze and so. So we see that persons and the media are being invited to attend in-person events or launches once again versus the virtual launches and the virtual get-togethers and conferences. So has the media really returned, or do you see businesses having in-person events more and more? And does this excite you? Being that
Yes,
audience?
yes. The energy conference last week is a great example. We didn't
Yes.
have something like that for 2 years, and it was really good to go out there and meet people that I had been. Literally, there were two instances where representatives for companies stood right next to me. And until I introduced myself or they introduced themselves, I didn't know this had been the person I had been speaking to over the course of the pandemic. And, just being able to network in person and get, again, experiencing the atmosphere and developing the story in person. It's a whole different experience as opposed to, picking up the phone or reading a report and, trying to bring something out of the black and white instead of living it in color.
Okay. So we do know that the Business Guardian is available every Thursday, or we may not know that it's printed way ahead. So, or maybe 2 days ahead, I'm not sure. But it's not printed the Wednesday for the Thursday, right? I believe. Is it?
Technically, yes, but the deadline is Tuesday.
Okay.
The stories are placed on Tuesday. So the deadline is Tuesday and the deadline is Friday for Sunday.
Oh,
Yes.
right. That was my question. So tell us about like some of the deadlines or some of the pressures you probably are faced that people don't know about.
Deadlines are, well, it's part and parcel for the work. All throughout my career, once you are in media, you know that you have, well, if you're in TV, you have until the newscast. So there's an earlier deadline for print. Usually you try to get your stories in by 5, 6 o'clock. But depending on, what is the availability of space, you might be earlier than that. So you might just need to get it in to reserve a spot in the Business Guardian to make sure that your story is in, as opposed to, waiting until the last minute and hoping you can still slide in a story.
Okay, good. And have you, in your experience, or maybe you want to share a story with us in terms of feedback that wasn't positive? Maybe you ran a story on someone and they would have said, maybe you misquoted me or there was an inaccuracy here. Have you ever faced that, and what did you learn through that experience?
I had to think about it. Most of the criticism came before I came onto the business desk. But on the business desk, I ran afoul of a member of cabinet. Because of an entire press release stating that I slightly misrepresented their words.
Okay.
I correctly quoted them, but they said the context of the article, misrepresented what they were trying to say. So you always have to be careful as how things are framed and everything like that. But of course, because I correctly quoted them, it became nothing more than a chastising. Why you make me look that way?
Yeah.
As opposed to this isn't. Yeah, but that was actually a lesson I learned a long time ago. Being in crime and court earlier, I did face a lawsuit. I think it might still be in court, simply for omitting a word on a court ruling. So that's how careful you have to be. That's the difference between having to pay somebody money or people just having to suck it up and go on with it.
Wow, look at that. Okay, so now you're extra cautious.
There's always space to be cautious.
And who exactly is it? Because I always believe that you write a story and then someone comes up with the headline. Is that the case?
Generally, that is the case. Sometimes, we put a title on the story when we submit, and sometimes that title becomes the headline. I seen loading, but yeah, sometimes our titles become the headlines, but most times it's usually an editor or a sub-editor who would put together the headlines for the story. And it was actually a headline that got me in trouble. It was actually my words exactly.
Yeah. I don't say you're in trouble. It probably caused a PR scare. And nobody likes that. So in terms of the front cover, the front story, because of course businesses love to get the front cover of our Business Guardian supplements. I think even in my early days of communications and stuff, the thing was to get into the Business Guardian. It was that prestigious. So what decides who comes to what is the cover story basically? Because to get the photo cover with yourself or a new executive was like the goal. Who decides what is the lead story in the Business Guardian?
Well, that would be the lead editor of business. That would be his call, or the deputy if he is doing the magazine. So currently that would be Eugene Curtis Williams and George Julian. Sometimes the reporter can pitch and say, well, I think this story is worthy of being the cover. And if your pitch is strong enough, you will be successful and get the lead story or the cover story. That's usually how it goes.
Okay, great. And in terms of breaking down, because I've seen other publication with that, would do that. You would have the business supplement, and within it you'll find categories like entrepreneur, or spotlight on an entrepreneur, or spotlight on a new business. Is there any chance at all for a new startup company to make it to the Business Guardian? What are the possibilities?
Fairly high. As I say, usually people pitch that to me in my inbox, and once I read the story and I get a feel for it, and I can put together a worthy angle, they have a very strong shot of getting into the Business Guardian. As I said, new businesses, new ideas, they're really exciting to report on. So once you can show me that there is something unique or niche about your brand, I'm very likely to, try and feature it.
Excellent. And I also want to talk a little bit about the process or the weight process. So for those who may be wondering, if Peter Christopher interviewed me, Wednesday, when exactly is my story going to run? And sometimes person's stories take months to appear. So give us a little insight as to, okay, so Peter contacted me Friday. Am I going to be next week? Am I going to be in the week after? So tell us about the delay sometimes, especially as a PR person. I face it, it's not going to be there next week sometimes. So the following week, it might be 2 months. So what is that like?
I mean, that all depends on the news cycle and, what is topical and, what the paper is looking for at the point in time. Generally, if I do an interview, more than likely the person is going to be in the Business Guardian either that week or the week after. That's usually what happens. It's very rare. I think that more would happen with entertainment features that I would hold. But business features, I usually try to keep it very newsy and very topical. So I want to use it within a week. I don't want it to get stale or let the reference fade off, because it normally be about an opening or a new business or what is happening in the market. So if I'm writing about what happened in the market in February, it can't go in March. So usually it's not very, very far along after I do the interview.
Excellent. Yeah, I didn't know that, so that's good. And in terms of the newsroom resources, because we know like things like photography, you all may not have the resources to send a photographer to your business and so what kind of things would help you get your story? Is it that if you do your own photography, if you do your own makeup and headshots, what kind of assists someone trying to get featured?
You're asking about across various platforms. For print, sending pictures is always a plus, giving us an idea of, or giving us images that could go along with the story for both TV and print. Very helpful. It allows us to, okay, let me just tap into my TV side of it.
Okay.
Television, I think pictures tell the story more than a reporter can. And there have been stories that I have written that I've put extra effort in just because of the footage I got back. Because I knew what I could tell. Again, it goes back to what you experience and what you can refer to.
Yes.
Print is a bit different. Pictures accentuate print stories. They draw in the readers. There's a visual, and then you get the backstory to this picture in the print story. It's always good to send pictures. My editor is always on my case for pictures for the Business Guardian to go with your story. He's always telling me, don't forget that the story is not complete until you have a picture for it, a picture to go along with the story. He's always on my case about that because I'm not a native camera person. So and of course, because we have been in a pandemic for about 2 years, and we're only now really starting to experience in-person stuff again. I didn't always have the option of taking a picture of the business or the person I was interviewing. But now, definitely send pictures if you want your story to make it.
Excellent. Okay. Think I'm out of questions. I think we've covered my curiosity, most of it, for the topic that we're dealing with, which is the art of business reporting. Is there anything else that you think I should have touched on or you'd want to share, Peter?
First, I think I seen there was a question that came in from somebody. Was there? Seeing.
Hold on. Would you be able to look? My phone.
Do you think covering an issue like public servants' back pay changes the outcome?
Okay.
Yes, any coverage that can give feedback to the powers that be would have some impact, because you are giving them feedback. Perhaps you are offering insight into something that they may not have considered, and I actually do think the just like would have been the protests about the 0.000 or the 2% increase, getting the feedback from people as to, what this would mean and how it would affect them is feedback that will be carried to the legislators, and it will be weighed in the discussions going forward. So there's always they always say that the onus is on us in the fourth estate, to keep, the people with the power in check, and make sure that they do their due diligence and, take care of the people.
Yeah, and keep the issues on the forefront, which is very important, Were there any other questions? My feet have
I didn't see any.
Okay. Okay, I think this is a safe place to wrap up the live discussion. Thank you so much, Peter, for taking time from your busy schedule, today being Wednesday. Look out for his stories tomorrow in the Business Guardian. If you're not following him as yet, I invite you to follow him on Twitter at Pete D. Chris on Twitter. I'm not sure he'd want you to follow him on Instagram, would you?
Instagram is boring. It have nothing really on that.
Instagram is boring.
But thank you for having me. I am pleased that I was able to, be a good guest and give some insight as to what are some of the challenges for a business reporter. Yeah. I am far from a superstar. I'm just
very well. One of the things I enjoy in having these things is just challenging my own preconceived notions or misconceptions. So sometimes when I ask questions, it's really my own misgivings as well. So I'm just happy you were able to very accurately and succinctly clear up some of these thoughts about the media room and what you all really go through to get the story out there. So Peter is a superstar. I would agree with that. I guess you're a fan.
I humbly accept. I thank you for having me, and all the best to you, and keep up the good work. These are very insightful series. I think it's very helpful for the people to get an idea of what we go through.
Correct. So everyone, good night, and as a fan, I'll continue reading your stories, and all the best.
Okay, take care.
Take care. Keep safe, everyone.